This afternoon I want to talk about art and activism with the subtitle of the artistic fight against indigenous invisibility. This piece is called Honor. I'm using an old illustration from a children's book from the 1950s, coupled with an image of a contemporary Native person, which raises a number of questions about what is Indian, what does an Indian look like, and how does that look? And with that also, for me, comes the representation of indigenous people with the mix of popular culture and what that identity ultimately means. Oftentimes, we are left as a relic, people that existed one time and that no longer exist anymore, which I'm standing here telling you this is not true. Our modern existence is one that is a constant struggle. Not only are we still here, but that we live in the same spaces that you do, and oftentimes even like the same things that you do, because we are members of our tribal community, but we're also having an American experience. And in that American experience, I can uphold my tribal traditions and ceremony. I can also like Kendrick Lamar. One of the pieces at the forefront of the mascot debate was this, which when I first made this is an incredibly difficult piece. It's incredibly difficult because there is a use of racial slurs and stereotypes that are being used to make a point, which I'm not generally a fan of. It says American genocide reconciled through football. I'm essentially making fun of the idea that mascots honor Native Americans. Is somehow hundreds of years of overt oppression and forced assimilation comes down to everything being okay by a bunch of grown men in tights tackling each other, which I think might be. A number of the Washington football fans in Washington, D.C. are black. And so creating something that gives context to why the word redskin is so problematic and using these other racial slurs to help that along becomes an actually pretty important tool to give context. And so stickers and posters have been all over DC for the last 6 years on this issue. The most recent piece I've done is called Invisible Loss Movement. This piece is almost entirely based on metaphor, but it's also based on space. It's based on existing in spaces that are not as obvious. Using traditional regalia that's used in powwows and other places, and stripped all the color out of them. Everything's black. The beadwork's black, the leather work's black, the ribbon work's black, and we dance. This is my daughter, Sage, my oldest daughter, in a jingle dress, and I'm in a men's northern traditional. It's a piece that I created with the idea that my indigeneity can inform the things that I think and the things that I see. I'm not a powwow dancer. In fact, I'm a really crappy dancer, but these things are still there in my mind. These are still part of my experience as a Native person. And so it's not about some traditional ceremony. It's about being informed by the spaces that I have occupied throughout my life. And it's not about whether or not I'm dancing right or if I'm dressed correctly, but instead it's about the aesthetic value of this as a viable piece of art.